we'll be having today. Let you know that we'll be recording this session for documentation purposes. Thank you. Our theme for today is synergy as a key for gender equality. We work together to achieve our goal. Our awesome erudite speakers, I'd like to of this virtual event. Introduce you to the convener of this virtual event, a 19-year event veteran with 4,001 people trained. She has a combined honor in history, certificates in digital media, human resources, project management, communication. NGO and NGO community spans over 21 years. She has held organizations like Junior Chamber International, KH Africa Achievers Awards, and so on, with commendations and awards about women and youth empowerment. She believes active participation. She's the convener of Africa. Please welcome with me, and let's allow me over to you.
Thank you so much, Ine. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I just want to say welcome, first of all. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I can already see two of our speakers on the platform, and it's always a great honor to just have that conversation, because I believe that is one of the steps that we need towards making things happen. As I always say, Africa, when it comes to AWIPA, it's basically African Women in Politics Arise, which is just a bridge. It's an NGO, registered NGO here in Nigeria, which is a bridge between women and their political, careers. And then, of course, seeks to have, the SDG 5, which is gender equality when it comes to the political sphere. Most times we say gender equality in the workplace, but I believe that if something can change in terms of the political arena, then we'll see things really change, because majority of those we have on this planet right now are women. And if they are women, that means the majority of the resources go untapped or unused, which is ridiculous. I've met a lot of brilliant women, a lot of strategists within the sphere of whether it's NGO, the civil society, in the workplace, and much more. And this can easily be translated into the political arena. And I believe that is important, And when it comes to this particular topic, synergy is one of those things that are key to me, because I've always had the opportunity to synergize over decades. Maybe if you're in the NGO community, you realize that to get anything done, whether it's kick malaria out, whether it's feed the children, you need synergy for it to work. Not one person has everything. But when we synergize across board, there is a possibility that we'll get quickly to our goal. When it comes to the men, they know this rule, whether it's across race, whether it's across a particular sector, men just naturally synergize. But over time, as I said at one of the meetings, that a lot of women, without knowing it or unconsciously, have been brought up to think that there's only a few spaces for women at the top. So there's a psychology that makes you want to push down the other woman. There's a psychology, and this psychology transcends just women, not just women. It transcends to platforms too. So when you see another platform that seems to be doing almost the same thing you're doing, instead of you to think of synergy, you're thinking there's space for just one of us, which doesn't actually make sense. It's not real. It's just a mirage. And I think it's time for us to speak into this and start working towards it, so that if not in a decade, if not in 5 decades, at least let the time come when this synergy will be so obvious that even if it's not our set, the set of the next generation to come can say that, wow, they changed something. So I would like to say welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Please go ahead, our moderator.
All right, thank you so much, Olawumi Heavens, and welcome. Taking out time to join us on this virtual event. Use our very first speaker, and her name is Bisayo Bus. I hope I pronounced your surname correctly. She is a lawyer. She's also and a legal advisor with diverse experience as oil and gas, banking, hospitality, and so on. She had a successful acting sector. She was named in 2018, 2000 Young Nigerians. Bisayo is the current head of the legal department and Grace Energy Limited and the founder of Project One. As a woman, she has committed her resources to in Nigeria. She is also the convener of the annual #I Am a Nigerian conference. Approved leadership club in schools. Who believes that African people will build Africa at the end of the day. And to all, she aspires to contest for the highest office in Nigeria to further express hope in the possibility of more women rising to a sociologist, Rotimi Akinadaju, and lives with her family in Nigeria. You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nene. It's a great privilege, honor, and pleasure as well to be on this platform today. Can I go ahead and just talk about the topic now? Okay, so thank you, everyone. I'm happy to see a lot of African faces. It's always an interesting experience for me when I have to speak to people, hear your feedback, and then we just have this conversation around how to make our nation great, how to make our continent better, and how to make our world an entirely a better place. Now, talking about today's topic, which I find very interesting, especially since I'm a woman, and not just a woman in the political education sector, will try to encourage political participation across board. That means when we talk about gender, I'm not looking at either the male or the female. I'm saying everyone should be given the opportunity to participate. And I love what Awipa is doing, because first of all, one of the barriers that we have in the world today against women in particular, because that's the gender that is currently underrepresented all over the world, is the narrative that has passed down from one generation to the other. The narrative that, oh, women are left to the background, oh, women cannot do it, oh, it's for men only. And of course, when you look at across board in every sector, you see the men taking the lead in so many places. So you see our girls growing up into that narrative that has been placed and set before you. You believe, oh, it's for the men and it's not for the women. So you don't really have most women even aspiring to be in political offices. And I'll give example. In Nigeria, we advocate for more women in politics. The last election, we have in fact, the last two elections, we had a presidential candidate as at that time, who is our current president, saying we're going to give more seats to women. Even this current one, you have some political parties giving free tickets to women. But you know what? At the end of the day, how many women stepped up to contest for this position? So the narrative over the years had been, oh, they're not giving us representation on the table. But the reality really is, are women pushing? Are we synergizing? Are we coming together to change this narrative, to push more people forward so that we can have more women at the helm of control? Now, there are different school of thoughts around this when it comes to women participation all over the world. And I would always say it's not an African problem. Having women underrepresented, it's a global issue, it's a worldwide issue. For the first time, I like to refer to a country like United States of America, where to this very present day, out of how many presidents that the United States of America has produced, there's not one woman. We were able eventually to have a vice president in Kamala Harris in the last election. And if America, the United States of America, had gone on for that number of years without producing a woman as the leading, the first citizen of their country, it shows that it's not just an African problem. So I think that's first thing I want us all to realize, that this is not an African problem. This is a worldwide perspective that we can change. And I would also like to also refer to the situation where we have, or history in Nigeria, in Africa, where we have Sir Ellen Sirleaf become the first female president. It shows it is possible in Africa. So it's not, most times, one of the things we all talk about is the political barriers, the traditional barriers, because an African woman is naturally seen as a mother, the one that is meant to be relegated to the kitchen. That is why we don't have women in politics. I think what we have got wrong over the time generally is us coming together to change this narrative, especially for those of us who are in this age grade already. So one of the areas where I believe we can synergize is putting the right education out there, the right orientation for young girls. One of the things I advocate for under my platform, Project One, is when we have these students, boys and girls, we let them realize that the position there is for you and I. Nobody is disenfranchised. The Constitution did not say this position is for the man. It didn't say it's for the woman. So you need to, by yourself, see yourself as capable of being there. There's always this notion as well that says women don't support women. I really do not want to believe that. I've seen it. I know it happens, but I think that, well, competition is everywhere, even when a man is contesting against another man. So you definitely would expect opposition, either from whoever is antagonizing you or whoever is not on your train at that moment. But I've seen a lot of women supporting other women to rise. Everybody on those platforms, we have quite a number of women here today that we can start doing one thing or the other to support, to promote, and ensure that people are actually making progress. So some of the things I put here for us as women, especially, I'm speaking now to women, is we need to build stronger families. There's no way, you know, I like my already I said I'm married to a sociologist. Sometimes my husband and I just talk, and when we're done talking, I said we just like talking about society all the time, like what's going on in this area and all that. But the truth is, each of us come from a family. Everybody represented here is connected to another person and another person, either as your mother, as your sister, as your sibling. We can start changing this narrative from that immediate network. We need to build stronger families. We need to build people who realize that if I stand up, I'm contesting in 2027, by God's grace, 2026, 2027 in Nigeria. And it's expected that a lot of people would say, oh, who is she? A woman, can she do it? Can she handle Nigerian problem? The normal narratives that come with it. But if we start changing the narrative, if you start putting out your strength, if you start supporting one another, we would eventually prove to people that it's possible. Currently, we have over 27 women as head of states all over the world. And I do not think that they are doing badly compared to the men. In fact, I have a silent preference for women leadership because, some, and let me give you an example where they would say women do not support women. If I happen to be in a workspace and you want to take your child for immunization and I'm your boss and you tell me I'm taking my child for immunization, I would, okay, good. So you'll be back by what time? A male counterpart will probably say, okay, take the day off. And when I say you'll be back at what time, you look at me like women bosses. They are not nice. But I think we are just maybe more detailed, more, demanding, and women actually get job done. And appreciation to all the men on the platform, my husband, and I can see some men really on the platform. I appreciate your support and all that. But sometimes women try to push the other women to bring out the best in them, or because we also think our strength could be the other woman's strength. You feel, oh, I've done it before, so what's the big deal? You should be able to do it as well. So we tend to be more demanding. And sometimes at the end of the day, you tend to deliver on the job even more than the men. So I think a woman, an average woman doesn't want to fail. The criticism is already out there for you. They're already watching. In a space, in a country where I am, when a woman gets into power, you have 1 million eyes watching her than when a man gets into power. And really, it shouldn't be so, really, because judge them on the same basis that you would judge a man. If 10 men have failed and a woman comes in and a woman fails, everybody's shouting, it's headline, oh, a woman had failed. But meanwhile, you have 10 men failing on a regular daily basis. Nobody's screaming about that and all that. So we need more women, I totally believe. And then I think that we need to go more out for the younger generation, encourage them from this tender age, pay attention to the social issues. I know the religious barrier is there, the political social barrier is there, but I think when women also get into power, we'll tend to change some of those things. My example goes to, in political arena, I participated in 1 or 2 meetings recently, and of course, you see the meetings running late into the night. And then the society is asking you, is politics really for women? How do you want to combine your family and politics together? I think the more women, when you have more women in place, we would reduce the nocturnal activities if it has to be reduced, because you would understand the need to be home on time. But then the men would feel, oh, we can make it hotter for them, so they really do not want to participate. The foundation of having more women in power is having more women go into power. Until we start going there, we can't make the changes. The changes, we can't make it from outside. As much as I believe that we need more women there, it means, are we saying, and I just want to put a balance to it, that we want equal participation? I really do not subscribe to equal participation. It's possible that in the future, you just see the face of government and they're all women. The same way it didn't look, you know, you don't flinch when you look at a political office and you see all men. There should be a time that you will see all women and you are not bothered. But you know, imagine seeing that picture today and you look at a cabinet and you're seeing 75% of women. Everybody will like, oh, what's going on here? Because our mind had been so structured so that there should be few women. And I love what you said initially when you started that, you know, women too, these are barriers we need to break in our minds. A woman feels for a long time, most times, in fact, for board meetings that I attend, I happen to be the only woman on the board. And sometimes I'm wondering, okay, what's going on here? And if you see another woman, she's probably a secretary, like not a lawyer, but the one handling the typing. So sometimes we need to break out. We need to believe in ourselves. We need to push out. We need to encourage ourselves. We need to work together. We need to, like I said, first of all, break that psychological barrier in our mind that says that women can't do it. Support ourselves. Start orientation programs for those who are in the younger classes, so they also do not see it. Encourage more girls to participate in leadership activities, and I see us taking over the stage. I'll be rounding up on that, of course. I know there are a lot of other people to contribute to one way or the other, but I'll keep saying this. There is nobody stopping us. We are the ones stopping ourselves. Let's go all out. Forget the discrimination would always be there. It's even against the men as well. So go all out there, try your hand, and then keep getting better. We'll keep getting better. And I believe that we have all it takes to make this world a better place. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fisayo. That was wonderful. I like what you said about more women need to, for us to have more women in politics, more women need to get into, you know, politics. And we need to encourage girls to participate in leadership activities, orientation classes, and all that. Thank you so much. Please, if you have any comments, if you would like to comment on what Fisayo has shared with us, please indicate by raising your hand.
Because of time, please, if you have questions and comments, we'll leave it till the end so that the other speakers can also get their time. Over to you, moderator.
We can't hear you.
I said they can take the questions at the end so that the speakers can have time to speak.
All right, okay, that's fine. All right, thank you so much. I would like to introduce the second speaker, and that's Cynthia Nyamai. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Cynthia Nyamai is a media and PR expert with over 20 years of experience. She's also a political advocate and the founder of Cynthia Nyamai Communications. She's the first Kenyan to be awarded the Best Upcoming Business Journalist in Africa by the Diageo Business Awards. During the COVID-19 lockdown period, she started a live show on Instagram titled Conversations with Cynthia Nyamai, where her guests included CEOs and managing directors from various companies around Africa. She's currently a freelance writer for Forbes Magazine Africa and the Grace McKell Media platform. She's a representative of Women in Media and the chosen champion for Uganda. Please welcome with me, Cynthia Nyamai, as she shares with us. You're welcome, ma'am.
Thank you. I have to say that our first speaker is very passionate, and I was learning so much, and I think half of my notes now have been cut off because she spoke about a lot of things that I wanted to speak about, and I'll be using her as an example. And yes, you did say Nyamai, right? Not to worry. I think one of the sad affairs and reality of the gap between men and women in politics. You realize it when you actually get into politics. And I haven't run for any office, but I have worked in political campaigns in Kenya, the Jubilee party that just recently served for 2 terms, in Uganda, the political party that is in office right now. In Nigeria too, I did work with APC when APC was forming, the various political parties coming together. And during the first term that they had, and then you realize, I remember then we were so excited in Nigeria that we were about to get a first female governor, and the excitement, and everybody couldn't wait for it to happen. And unfortunately, it didn't happen. And then you realize that we are facing the same issues all over Africa as women who want to enter the political space. And I think the sad thing is that when women are not allowed to enter the political space, we are basically saying that women do not have a voice, or that their voice isn't a voice that the world needs to listen to. And I think women do have a voice. And I think that women should sit at the table as equals. But definitely when you work in campaigns, you begin to realize the different. And I think I was very young and naive when I started working on political campaigns, and I just opened up my PR company. And I quickly began to learn and see how difficult it is for women, even when they want to engage politically and run for a party immediately. And I have to say it is very important that parties also have to play a role, because they get into parties, even when it comes to nominations, it's almost like a difficult competition altogether, much more difficult than for men. Unfortunately, a lot of times women don't have the financial muscle that men have. Women also don't have also the networks that men have. And so it is very easy. I would quickly sit with men and we would raise money and just 10 business people would come and raise for a candidate, a male candidate, their friend, and quickly raise in less than 1 hour, I could see it, $1 million, less than 1 hour, because they have the networks. They'll just call their boys from the club, and in one night can raise $1 million in less than 1 hour. They can quickly raise that. The next day they can go and raise that. But when you look at women, the networks that we have is probably networks where one friend is working, another friend is a housewife. And so it is very important to understand that it is still not an equal playing field for men and for women. There are a lot of things that unfortunately women have to go through, and finance plays a major role when it comes to politics, especially here in Africa. You cannot win an election, especially the higher the office you go. And I have seen this in the various countries that I've worked in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and Nigeria. Even when I was working for APC, and people would say that the president didn't have as much financial muscles, but we quickly saw men like the former Lagos governor, Tinubu, who is also now running for office, and looks like as much as he's not that young, but he has the financial muscles, and that puts him ahead of the game, because finances is everything. One of the things that I quickly realized is that how our culture doesn't really also embrace women in politics. Unfortunately, we have defined as a society that politics is a dirty game, and which is not true at all. We have made the game dirty. Some people have made the game dirty, but politics doesn't necessarily have to be a dirty game. And so when women get into it, the first thing that we want to do is to begin to discuss how morally upright is this woman that she can even engage into politics. And we all know and it's so interesting that these discussions come up in the various countries I've worked in, and people say, political meetings have to be held very late at night. If you allow your wife to get into politics, that's it, you've lost your wife. She'll be coming home at 11 a.m. She'll be coming home at 1 a.m. And unfortunately, when the woman gets into the political game, she finds that men have already set their own standards. Men have already set their own meeting times. It is okay for them to meet at 1 a.m., 2 a.m. They will go home. Their wives won't ask. But if a woman comes home at 2 a.m., the only thing we can imagine in our heads when a woman comes home at 2 a.m. is that she must have been out with another man. But if a man comes home at 2 a.m., we clap and we say, what a hardworking man this man is. And you begin to see that also the society doesn't really accept that women should get into politics, because we imagine politics is a very dirty game. The other thing that you quickly begin to realize is that even as women try to get into political parties, you will find that the parties try to even make it a bit difficult for them. And people do this so that they will make an opportunity to take advantage of those women. They'll come and even tell you, I can push for you your agenda, but you have to pay a certain amount of money. Ask any political woman who is in politics. They will quickly be asked for money and told, for you to even get into this party, or for you to be nominated, or for us to allow you to run, I'm going to be like your godfather, but you have to first pay me this amount of money. It is more difficult for women, and they make it more difficult so that they can take advantage of women. And you find others who even come and say, if you do not have the money, then we can exchange sex for a position. And you quickly find people in the political parties actually waiting to take advantage of women. And even unfortunately, a lot of times they're not there to help you. They're just there to benefit themselves, and then they cut you off from the party and the position that you are seeking. So one of the things that I always say as we're talking about political space and women and equality is that we have to also talk to our political parties, and we have to demand as citizens of our country that we need to see political parties as they're selling their agenda, that they're very serious about women and how women can participate in every step of the political parties. The other thing also that I would like to mention is the electoral systems. I was just observing in Kenya, we just had the elections, and a lot of times, even as I was looking at our electoral body that's called the IEBC, as they were educating people around the country, I found it so interesting that even as they talk about politicians and they have actors or cartoons trying to bring out civil education, a lot of people in those pictures are men. So we are also still educating, doing civil education with still a picture of men, that the picture of leadership is a man, the picture of politics is a man, and unfortunately that comes because of the kind of thinking that we have as a society and the narratives that we sell about politics and women. And the other thing that I have to say is that women also do need to prepare, and I'd like to challenge us. For example, our first speaker has said that she wants to run for office in 2027. How are we, even as we have this discussion, going to sit with her later and prepare her? If you read books by Obama, you realize that he didn't just begin to prepare 1 year before the elections. There was a team of people preparing him even 10 years before, preparing him for that office. How can we, because we understand that women face bigger challenges, it also means that we have to prepare more. How can we make sure that we are preparing her for 2027? How can we begin to raise funds for her? How can we begin to make sure that she has the correct networks? And don't be fooled, elections are not just won by the voters, the counting of votes. There's a lot that goes behind. There's another international world that has a say in very powerful countries like Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa. The West have a say and they do influence. And so it is important at an early time like this that you begin to build your influence with nations like the US, the UK. How do we prepare our female candidates and make sure that they have an added advantage, because we have more disadvantages and it's not a level playing ground. So I have to say it is important, if you're a woman and you want to get into politics, the reality is that you will have to do more than a male candidate. And that's just the reality and that we have to embrace. But it is important, even as we discuss about these topics, that we find female leaders who we can support. And that is one way of quickly changing the narrative. And also, as we are preparing the women, it is also important to prepare the voters and have discussions like this every single day, bring up our children in a way that they can understand that, you know, women can also be leaders. They can quickly see it in our home. If we're bringing up daughters, let them know. The reason why I'm in politics is because I had a father who from a very young age told me I can be president. He allowed me to sit and watch political debates. And at a young age, he would allow me to go sit at the table with politicians and talk to them. And he never thought, you know, my daughter is only 17. Would these politicians be hitting on her? He knew that he had brought me up well. He knew that I can make a great leader, and he opened up those opportunities for me. So I believe in the family, and the changes that we want to see have to begin with us. They have to begin with our families, training our children and the young minds that are around us. So those are some of the thoughts that I have this evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. I really like the part where you talked about helping with preparing whoever wants to run for office, you know, preparing them, preparing women, because that's all about synergy. It's what we're talking about. Thank you so much. Please, if you can kindly drop your emails in the comment section, it will be very appreciated. I'd like to read what one of us posted, Omar King. She said, in response to what the first speaker said, she said that, sorry, just give me a second. Okay, she said there's plenty to think about from what first speaker Bisayo said, especially about the family being the stronghold that determines how well a female child will do in the society politically. And from what Cynthia also said, I really like the part where she said that we really need to prepare the women for whatever office that they're going to run for. And that's really important. And we also need to prepare the voters and educate our daughters, prepare them. And I really like the part where you said that your dad really encouraged you to be interested in politics, and that's really fantastic. So please, if you have any questions, any comments, would like to take them at the end of, after the third speaker has contributed. Okay, allow me, I have something to say.
Sorry, before we go on, because we're talking about synergy, and synergy is really key. Just like the moderator mentioned, because earlier on our first speaker mentioned that she's running for the office of the president in the next election of Nigeria. And we have another speaker who is the second speaker who is directly speaking to it, that what are we doing as women to synergize, to come behind her, because I believe that this platform is not by mistake. This is someone already asking us, how do we synergize to ensure that we have a potential president or madam president on the platform right now? And part of my talk is not only about synergy in terms of just women within Nigeria or within Kenya or within South Africa. It's about women cutting across this continent of Africa, even into diaspora, to be able to help each other to a point where we can synergize to come up with funds, synergize to come up and use our influence just to ensure that we change the face of politics in Africa. Thank you so much, moderator. Please go ahead. Can you hear me, Chine?
Yes, I can hear you.
Please go ahead.
All right. Thank you so much, Olawumi. I'd like to introduce our third and final speaker. She is Juliet Mahapila. She is a London Regional Executive Inclusion and Diversity Lead Champion, founder of Black Lib Dem, founder of UK Africa Diaspora Forum, North London Kenya Group, transformational leadership trainer, social impactor, philanthropist, international consultant, social scientist. She's a poetician, model, presenter, change maker, African woman, Wonder Woman. She was one of the presidential aspirants during Kenya's last election. Her missions include supporting humanity and communities in celebrating the significance of finding abundance and gratitude, happiness, love, and making a difference in the world. She also loves promoting inclusion around the world and finding your sense of purpose. Welcome to the platform, Juliet Mahapila. It's good to have you join us again. Thank you for being here.
I'm absolutely delighted to be here with you this evening. It's an evening here in London, and I'm always happy to join this kind of great discussion, Chine. Yeah. And I want to appreciate all the great key speakers and the host here today, Olawumi, and of course, Bisayo, Cynthia. I want to appreciate, and everyone here today. And I just, the last time we met, we were speaking about, I believe, the media and women in politics. And following on from that, when you've invited me to come and speak about this topic here today about challenges of the 21st century women in politics, but in particular, the synergy as a key for gender equality. And listening to all the key speakers, I just want to appreciate they've picked many of the barriers. So I don't want to go back into the barriers that they have picked. But one key thing that really draws, and thank you so much for mentioning that I stood and I went for the presidential election, this election that has just finished in 2022. And I want to draw back the energy that I see, the synergy that is needed. Let me say that women are beginning to get empowered, but I want to talk about investment in women, because this idea of investment in women is somehow lacking, but I also want to talk about how we can also invest in ourselves. And I believe that that is needed to add value in efforts of the beautiful topic and the theme of tonight's theme, synergy as a key for gender equality. So I'll start off by allowing us to think about what really happens in a woman from the minute that you put your name, that you are standing. Think about those moments that you are really now going out in your communities. I'm talking from both worlds. I've had opportunities to stand in London. I stood as a councillor here in London, and I can tell you the different various experiences that I faced, and I've stood as a candidate, aspirant candidate, and went straight to the top position as the president position in Kenya. Hence the reason now people are calling me Madam President. So let's go on for those moments that you make up your choice and you decide, I would love to make a difference in my country, because at that very moment, it is making a difference in your county or in your constituency or in your borough or in your country. As for me, it is the whole country, because I was going for the top position and I really want that. What was really happening in that moment, in that minute? And from the minute that I decided, yes, this is it. So I'm taking you to a journey here tonight, and I hope it will help somebody here tonight. And because we are concentrating and paying attention to the African women in politics, let's pay attention to those very let's pay attention to that kind of a scenario and the position of an African woman the very moment. And also, let me add, even that a situation, if you're living abroad, what is happening in that type of environment? And I want to draw back into the hostility environment that sometimes we find ourselves in, the microaggression that sometimes we find ourselves in as women. And I know that I've spoken to many, even just North African women, but even other women who tell me about the microaggression that they face. So let's understand what microaggression is and how that manifests itself in a woman's world. And I feel that is something that we probably might do a topic in another day. But the key elements in picking up microaggression is issues such as being silenced as a woman, for example, issues such as being emotionally feeling abused and bullying in the whole system in itself. So those are just some examples that I've picked randomly in efforts of allowing us to think what happens in those very moments. And that can be both. It can be happening from women to women, and it can also be happening from men to women. And sometimes you often hear even people saying, oh, I would rather sit amongst men, or, you know, and sometimes even women feeling afraid to sit amongst other women, which is sad in a way. And especially when you hear such conversations in our community. So let's draw back to that very moment. So in my case, I feel that having lived both experiences, and I can say to you, I usually have a very open mind in terms of, I love to say, when you go to these things, have an open mind. But in the efforts of promoting gender balance, which is absolutely necessary in this world, I want us to be able to understand that over the years, traditionally, over the years, for many years, if you look around the world, women are underrepresented, and those are the facts. So how do we overcome these challenges as women? So I've put a few things, and one of the things that I have said is we need to ensure that women are protected characteristics. Women are protected characteristics in amongst our policies that are going around the world. That is a protected characteristic because in UK, for example, we've got the Equality Act, but you see, we still need to have that element which is protecting the characteristics of women, and women are still a long way behind man's world. You know, sometimes you've had songs which say, it's a man's world. Now I want us to be singing, it's also a women's world. And I feel that that is really needed here today, because we need to be promoting proportional gender balance, which is also the SDG number 4 in our UN United Nations goals as well. And as we celebrate and as we listen to UNGA, a United Nations summit this year, let's be able to go and talk about women issues, women great leadership, and try and join in these conversations, because they are happening. Just before I came here, I just came out from a topic they were discussing about data, and I thought, let me put in an element of data about women. So we need to, when we see these things happening, and especially at the top, women, we need to be proactive. So that is something else I'm putting here. I want us women to be very proactive and be able to create a world in which we want to see. If we leave it all to the men, what we are saying is, we are saying it's a man's world. I want to take the effort as well. I believe Cynthia had picked up that issue. And also when we are choosing, we find the difficulty in creating the resourcing. I believe someone spoke about that. And that is why I'm saying it starts with us. I would love for us to have investment, create or have a fund. And last time as we were here, I remember Chineye, we spoke about this in efforts of understanding that the preparation of needing that investment is very necessary, because you questioned us and you asked us, think about when we are picking up the application form and the amount of money that is requested for a woman, and women were obviously struggling. And so if we were talking about equity and access, and you were asking those very same questions, and I want to say that is why I'm saying the woman needs to be having that kind of protected characteristics, but that doesn't mean that we are lower than a man. What it means that we need to be able to have equal equity. Currently, a woman always is asked to speak after a man, and even it's like almost you're getting permission. I remember that I've said to you, my experience in both worlds is the book, so people can see various the difference. So I'll start off. Let me say, in Africa was very in Kenya, that is, it was very different for me as compared to UK here. In Kenya, I was experiencing things like, number one, what I call hostility. I mean, the interesting thing, actually, people don't think it's hostile, which is quite interesting. But when somebody comes in and tells you that you should actually start from the bottom and hasn't asked your experience, actually, I feel that is hostile, because I feel that people need to learn how to have a conversation and ask you, what is your experience? Why do you think you want the top position? But for somebody to actually dictate to you what you should and where you should be putting your head on, or your the role of where you should go as a woman. And mainly that will happen in women. In fact, you'll have so many people telling you what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing. And I feel that is kind of somehow, how, I don't know the right words to use here, but maybe allowing you not to really be the best that you can be. I'm a person that loves to bring the best gift that you were born to be. And I believe that we should encourage our young people, our youth, to be the best that they can be. And so quite often you find that that kind of unconscious biasness, and where somebody will say, oh, you haven't been here, and especially if you're coming from abroad and you're trying to join the your various country, people think you don't have experience because you haven't, they're thinking that you haven't lived there. And I want to challenge every one of you that you are actually a child of that same village. You're actually a child of that very community, and you came from that community, so you know that environment in which you are. But it seems like the minute you leave and you go and study and then you're coming back, people want to now explain to you, or thinking that you have forgotten your roots, and you can never forget your identity or your roots. I want to challenge everyone here tonight and leave that to you. And as I finish off here today, I want to ask men to be champions of women as well, because quite often, even when we have seen women representatives posts being given in places like Rwanda or in places like Kenya, you find the conversations are very different. In places like Kenya, sometimes even those women representatives are not even given the respect that is needed when it comes to women posts. And the question is why? And so you find this kind of microaggression issues that I am talking about, which challenges us as women. And that is why I thought I should bring it here today. I would love to see that we invest in women. We create a kind of, you can imagine if we were to create a kind of synergy that allowed women to tap into our resourcing, something that I'm quite often talking about, what that would mean for women. I would love to see a situation where no woman is lacking, and we are able to sort of suggest, or to sort of like, as long as you aspire, we have a foundation that kind of supports and invests in that woman, because that is the difference between increasing the number of a candidateship that is going on. Otherwise, what we have is women feeling being exploited, and in many words, women, once women are feeling very much exploited, what tends to happen is you find that they are reluctant into going into politics, and that kind of conversation of where a woman is seen, you find that the environment it touches on that microaggression that I was talking about. I would love to appreciate the work of somebody that I came across, Laura Cobath. .com, and she talks about types of gaslighting. And I want us to understand those issues, because those are the issues that typically women go through when they enter politics. The first one that she talks about is countering, which is questioning your memory, the way things such as you never remember things, or are you sure this is what you really want, and if you've got a bad memory. So there's that kind of gaslighting, types of gaslighting. Withholding, you find that women experience withholding, which is refusing to engage in conversation, and that happens with both men and women. So they might often, they may pretend not to understand someone, or they do not have to respond to them. So what you find is many a times when women are putting up their applications, sometimes they don't get responses on time, and many a times women might have to work that extra hard. So trivializing, oh my goodness me, I love that one, belittling your feeling or disregarding them. Many a times women feel that, you know, they are belittled. That is something that women are always experiencing, and especially in politics, they are being belittled. Can you really do this? Can you really do that? And I think that becomes a habit, and so disregarding our feelings. So I thought that is something that's a type of gaslight, and I feel that is something that we need to be aware. And denial, something occurred and you pretend that it didn't occur. So as women experience that every single day, you know. So you find that and men are in denial sometimes. They don't want to accept that actually women are underrepresented in our community. That is being in denial. So I love to challenge our men. Many a times they will say, but we gave you this, we gave you that. No, we want equal equity. Diverting changes the focus of discussion, and our credibility is questioned. Many a times women's credibility is questioned, and so I felt that is something that comes under gaslighting, because our credibility is questioned. Who is she? Where did she come from? Is this the daughter of so and so? Oh, I know that family, they did this and that, and before you know it, it is all kind of goodness me. So I felt that I should draw back and bring that kind of issues. And finally, the work of Laura Horvath, I spell that for you. Finally, she talks about stereotyping, and you know the negative stereotypes of a person, gender, race, ethnicity, sexuality, nationality, age, and especially the age of a woman when it comes to women. You know, we are put at the center of your age. And there's this one that I really don't like, the question, has she got children? How many children has she got? And, you know, and that begins to gaslight you all of a sudden. So Chineye, I hope I've picked and brushed up some of those issues here today. And that is in Africa, but in London, some of the challenges were really institutional, systemic racism. And that is on top of you being a candidate as a Black person. You can't change your color. So you've not just got the challenges that women experience. And I often talk about these issues with, you know, in efforts of civics education. So I want to advocate and leave it here that promoting inclusion and diversity is absolutely a necessity that we all need to have. And it's absolutely a necessity that we all need to support and generate interest in this world here today. And let's promote love, let's promote our youth so that our youth can enter politics, and let's not just leave it as it is, because the way it is currently, we don't have alternatives. We continue bringing in the same leaders, and sadly, the message that I put across in Kenya, we needed more, and we needed to have an alternative kind of thinking, an alternative thinking that brought more women in a political world. Thank you for listening. Juliet Makapila. And yes, I'm the African Wonder Woman. Thank you. Any questions, just feel free to text me.
All right, thank you so much, Juliet, for sharing. I really appreciate what you have shared with us. If you just joined us, please can you post your email address in the comments section? And if you have any questions, now is the time to ask your questions. So if you have any questions, you can raise up your hands, indicate, and then I'll call on you to ask your questions. If you have any comments, the same thing applies. Thank you. Okay, while people are getting ready to ask their questions, Juliet, I have this question for you. Okay, you mentioned coming up with funding or investment. Is there a way women across Africa can synergize on building funds for women across Africa? So women are coming together to build funds. Thank you.
Yes, there is different ways. And one of the things I forgot to talk about is trust. One of the things that has made us fail a lot is the issue of trust. You find that trust has become a problem around many communities, and that has generated another kind of conversation. So I feel that we have many ways to bring what I call a revolution of bringing the leadership and especially the African woman to unite. And, there's a friend of mine who always challenges me in UK, as you heard, I'm in the Liberal Democrats, and I happen to be the person that promotes inclusion and diversity within the Liberal Democrats in London. I'm the lead diversity regional champion. And I can tell you that I wish people understood how great it is to be in that kind of post, but also understood the challenge that I face being a Black woman. So it comes with two. So how do we bring the synergy in investment? In London, for example, I would want to see more women or even coming in. From the moment somebody is elected in any cross party, we look at that woman and ask that woman, how can we help you raise funds? We can do it. You don't necessarily need to wait to be given. I am that sort of person that if everybody, somebody was saying to me, how do we raise money? But imagine if we all came together and you had 1,000 women, each at maybe £10 each, that's already money that is coming in. And and you're pushing somebody who is already up there. And last time I told you, the biggest problem is getting there in the first place. The biggest problem is getting there. So now you're elected, or you're the aspirant candidate. And now what is stopping you is money. You can imagine that kind of frustration. That I saw in both camps. I have seen that in both camps. And in United Kingdom, as I've told you, one of the things is, even sometimes so there's also the aspects of culture as well, if you see, so adapting into the system as well. So you've also got that extra sort of like barrier. And so sometimes you're being told exactly what to do. And it can be quite challenging when you have to balance all these things. So I believe in creating an industry. I was talking about in Kenya, perhaps creating a business, and that business then generates money for us. So that could be something that we could think of. So at one time I was even thinking of supporting the Girl Child, which was making sanitary towels. And I was thinking, how can we bring the women politicians to make that sanitary towels and then sell that? And that becomes a business for women. And so everybody that has contributed in that kit, when it's your time, that can then support, our engagement. So I was thinking of that, and you can see in places where there's rural, even that becomes a problem. And in Scotland, we can see they are now giving free sanitary towels. So yes, I hope that answers the question, but I also want to push the policy side. And one of the great things, I want to appreciate Nigeria because I visited Port Harcourt, and what I saw that they did in one aspect, they pushed the education agenda in Port Harcourt. And I'm trying to remember the governor at the time, but not mentioning. But one of the great things, let's say the education people, their commissioners, were quite interested in education, and they were pushing the women education, and they created a space how they could, let's say, for example, give uniforms to the all the parents. And so what they did there was they created a space whereby they got the parents together or guardians together, and they would say, if you worked in this whatever it was, and the industry that they were doing, I think it was fish or whatever, and they could then get a sort of like investment in their family. So that's one way. So it's not just free as well, Chineye. It is sort of like you're putting your effort, because assuming that you can be given and you haven't given back, it needs to be both ways. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you so much, Juliet. Yes, it answers the question. And I see there's a question here, but I know you mentioned some of the things that we could do to raise funds, because that's one of the questions that Deborah Taiwo has asked. She said trust and funds are key to creating the required synergy, to be honest. Then she now asks, how do we raise money? How do we unlock finances for synergy in politics? And I know you mentioned a few things that you're thinking about doing, and some other things, ways that we could do it. So, but I think this question, Juliet, maybe you would want to answer, or maybe any of our speakers would also love to comment on what Juliet has said. Thank you.
So the question of honesty, I feel that we need to be able to vet ourselves from the community. And that is very, very important, because it's that community that really knows you. And if there is anything that has happened in your life that has made you sometimes not to fall in the wrong path, I feel that people should disclose right from the start, because the question of integrity is absolutely important in any community. And I feel that the question of integrity, it is when you don't disclose something that in upfront that I have a problem with, because I love to work with people who are honest. And I feel that integrity is absolutely important in our lives. And that is what allows us to know whether we are able to trust you. If you came to me and you didn't disclose something that I was meant to know, and then later on I'm beginning to find that, I think that's a question of dishonesty. And so the question of honesty comes integrity. So think about integrity and what good integrity is. So that's what I think. And I think by saying that, somebody else is going to ask me, what if somebody comes in with all kinds of issues and tells you, and then you know this person is corrupted and everything. And that is when now I talk about issues of I talk about issues of knowing and now allowing that community to be the best judge if they want that person to stand as a candidate, because I believe in good democracy and I believe in good governance, and I believe that in areas of whereby we need to be pushing forward for the right people to be leading us, for the right great examples that our society aspires to be. So that's where I'm with it. With that, I want to push for the right kind of governance, the reason why Africa sometimes where we are right now, you know, you see that we're still behind compared to the index level of European. And even right now, as we celebrate, is it the 94, 95 UNGA, you can see where we are. We are still talking of Africa behind. Certain places in Africa, I said it here, don't have proper latrines, proper clean water, electricity. And so for me, when I think like that, you know, in Kenya, it's going to be 60 years this year. 60, it's 59 years. And it's going to be 60 years of non-delivery of, you know, places where women are still going in poor latrines. So good, clean water is essential. You know, are we having responsible leaders? I would be asking, are we having responsible governors and MPs? And so the question is, why do the communities and voters keep electing the same candidates? And that is why I'm pushing for women to come forward. That is why I love your platform here so much. And thanks so much that you're able to bring this conversation in your program so that we are able to push as many women, because there is no way a woman would want to be in a village without clean water. Or there is no way a woman would want to be in a village with no good healthcare system. There is no way. Talk to any woman. So that is why you see this investment in a woman is absolutely necessary, Chineye.
Okay, thank you so much, Juliet. Okay, somebody just posted, AWIPA could synergize with Dr. Obieze Basili's School of Politics, Policy and Governance. They teach the science and art of fundraising for politics, especially for women and politics amidst other very important issues on politics and governance. I don't know, Olawumi Heavens, would you like to comment on that?
I would just like to say thank you very much for that information. Also, I know that some of our speakers actually have other engagements. I think if Cynthia is still here, we might ask her a question, but I know that she has another meeting and she's supposed to, okay, she's back now. So let me see, let me just go ahead. You know, she's been in PR for a long time and she's had the opportunity to work with within the political sphere. And that's part of why, you know, I brought her on the platform today. I've looked at her work, followed it. And for me, the reality on ground is that you're able to observe even what happens there, just as she mentioned how men network and then they sit right there and the funding comes in. And she also mentioned about funding just now, just like the moderator asked about it. But is it possible for women to actually synergize across the board, across Africa, to make things work or to have more women in politics? Because, you know, when we limit things sometimes to our country, I'm very glad that all of our speakers are quite international. They've had the opportunity to work across nations in Africa. And so my question would be, is it possible, and this is to Cynthia, is it possible for women to work across Africa, from your experience, to work across Africa to ensure that more women get there? Just like we mentioned earlier on when I was speaking about having synergy, not just for women in Kenya, not just for women in Nigeria, not just for women in the UK. How do we ensure that we can work across board to the point where I can say it concerns me if Cynthia comes out and says she wants to be the president of Kenya? I'm concerned because she's a woman, and then what can we do to help? If, just like our first speaker, Bisayo, said, she wants to be the president in the next election, is there a way for this to happen in reality?
In reality, and that's a very good question. In reality, it is even easier when people come from different countries and work for a certain political client. In reality, we just had the Kenyan election. It had to take the hand of people from various countries to help business people. During even the inauguration, we did see businessman Dangote come for it. It is not a coincidence. He wasn't just coming there to sightsee. There is a reason why he was there. It tells you probably who he sided with, who he funded. And so I know, like, one time we worked with a political candidate from Tanzania. He's now a minister in Tanzania. And what we did was, which really helps, because sometimes when you raise even funds from your own country, when you get into office, it is difficult for you to work because people come and say, hey, I gave you $500,000 and now you must give me this tender. And what I've been trying to do is to try and raise leaders who are against corruption and are for integrity. And one of the ways that I tried to do it with him was to raise money for him outside Tanzania, so that there is less political and even interference once he gets into office. And so we raised his money in Kenya, basically because there's a close relationship between Kenya and Tanzania. There are a lot of business people who were interested in Tanzania and doing business, and their interference would be far much less than if you work with locals. So for me, one of the answers is to work with outsiders. If I give an example of, even if you look at how the Ghanaian president, who is in office right now, part of the reason why he made it is because he had Tinubu's support. And we saw part of the APC team work for the Ghanaian president. There was money also involved. And so we see that it happens. Men do it. They have friends all over Africa, business people, and they tell them, you know what, I know you're interested in doing business in Kenya. Why don't you support me? And when you come to Kenya, I will support you. So it works, and it works very well. And I would like to say that even as women, we really need to find ways to do it, and also invite men in our campaign strategies and teams, and not just think, okay, we have a woman who wants to run for office, let's just have women. No, let's also include men. The fact is, a lot of times they have the finances, they have the networks, and it would be good to include them. The only thing you have to recognize, as I said earlier, is that a woman will have to do much more than a man. So my strategy would be, like for our first speaker, is to begin to work now, build those networks right now, have those conversations right now. Begin to build the funding right now. Begin to build your team right now, the people who will be your inner circle, the people who are building your strategy, the people who can even tell you when you begin to run for office. These are the questions that Nigerians will have. And so these are the answers that you should give. Begin to practice on even just giving speeches and learn from different people around the world. And when like right now we have, and begin to share more stories of even other countries that have female presidents. I think now people in East Africa can feel, yes, it is possible for us to have a female president, because now we have a female president in Tanzania. And when we begin to share more narratives of how well female presidents, I've read a report that talks about female presidents, and actually they do perform much better than male presidents. It's there's a study. And we begin to share more and more narratives and even explain why they do so well. I can give you a good example. When we had the former president of Tanzania, who unfortunately passed on. The relationship between Kenya and Tanzania was so bad, trade was so bad between the two countries. But immediately we got a female president. She quickly worked on the relationship between Kenya and Tanzania. And it's simple things where she visited the Kenyan president. He also went to Tanzania, and immediately we saw trade go up by 16% in just 2 weeks. And the relationship between the two countries is the best relationship that we have ever had ever since independence between these two countries. And these are stories that we should be sharing. And even the people of Tanzania say that now there's a big difference. We should begin to share these narratives, learn from each other, have even visits with the Tanzanian president, and let her share her stories. So I'd like to say that it is important for us to do it. Even if I was our first speaker, I would begin to build those networks around Africa. And Africa is the best place because, to be honest, we are all facing the same challenges. So we would be able to understand her challenges. And Africa knows that if something succeeds in Nigeria or a neighboring country, it gives me hope that the same thing will also happen in my country. I just came back from DRC. People are so excited when I tell them I'm from Kenya. They're like, oh, you people have had such a smooth transition, no bloodshed, nothing. So it is possible, you know. And so it's exciting for Africa. We learn from each other when we see people able to overcome a challenge. We know then we too will be able to overcome that challenge. So now is truly the time to have more conversations like this. And after the conversation, take action plans. And so I hope that even after this conversation, there will be action plans to help our candidate, to stand with her, have volunteers, have people who will sit and form a team and follow up until the day she becomes president. It is possible. It is so possible. And before I finish, one last thing that I have to say is that what people don't realize when you read about history is that after every pandemic, there is a shift of wealth and power, because there's a shift that happens in our mind. People now are understanding we can have a conference like this. I don't have to go to work in the office every day. I can work in my home. I don't have to go shopping. I can shop online. Every time we go through a pandemic as human beings, there is this great shift. People who have been to hell and back, seen death and back, begin to think in a completely different way and begin to grasp what is more important in their life and begin to drop myths and narratives that were not true in their lives. And we have just come from COVID. So it gives an opportunity and it tells you. And one thing I know is that we are going to see more and more female leaders. Our minds are now ready for it. Thanks to COVID-19, our minds are thinking differently and much more open-minded. So it is important that we take advantage of this time and opportunity that the pandemic gave us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing, Cynthia. Like you said, it's really important to share success stories so that we can, make positive or take positive actions towards our goal. Just before I call on Olawumi Heavens to give her closing remarks, I want to ask our first speaker, Fisayo, one more question. What experience have you had so far in terms of synergy and networking to get into the office of the president in the next election, or the elections that will be taking place in 2026/2027? Thank you.
Fantastic, Chineye. And that's just to confirm what Cynthia said, that you need to start preparing for all these questions because it's just going to be rolling out and how. And just before answering your question, I want to say thank you to everybody who has spoken, for all the comments on the comment section. I enjoy reading it all. And, it's fantastic really when you already can feel the synergy building up from this platform and how much more we could do. Being in politics, for me, I think it's been an all-life affair And it's been for me as a Nigerian child. I grew up in a political environment, supported different political people without being political in quote. You know, I run an organization that is non-partisan, and so you find maybe in recent times you find me working on the screening committee for who is emerging as senatorial candidates in a particular party, while still holding some other sensitive positions for talking about the two major parties in Nigeria at the current level. So I work across those people as someone who is advocating for a better Nigeria. And that's a platform upon which I've gained my experience, because the whole goal for me, it's not so much about gender. You've seen some of the interviews I've granted in the past. I've always said leadership is not really like resident in a particular gender. It's about responsibility. It's about having that sense of direction. It's about that concern for the next citizen who you do not know before tomorrow, before yesterday, and then seeing that person evolve and making changes in Nigeria. So my advocacy over the years had been about the country and about the continent, you know, and just to just add more few words before allowing me to take over, I would say that the most important thing for me right now is not just having this synergy within Nigeria, but having Africans supporting, pushing for this thing, that it is possible for Nigeria to also have the first female president at this time. And that's why I started my campaign, or the build up. A lot of people ask me, why are you not contesting in 2023? And I told them it's a matter of strategy. I could go hard now and focus my energy on 2023, but that's not the goal. I'm looking at a time when it's more realistic than when I can come into power, and all the work and the foundation we still need to lay. So I'm not rushing out to say I'm campaigning in 2023. We've started this Bisayo in 2027 for about 2 years, 3 years, 4 years going on now. And the whole idea is that's the goal. We're still going to 2027, but the work must start now. We're not going to wake up in 2026 to say, I want to run for the office. The grassroots work is already going, but we still need to go more, for me, African-based. I want to have support from Senegal. I want to have support from Kenya. I want to have support from even outside African countries, and have that synergy built over time. And it's something we can't stop doing, because like I said rightly, or when you were reading my citation, I said Africa at the end of the day will be built by Africans. We understand ourselves, we know our peculiarities, we know our challenges out there, and we can do it. And history has shown at different times that when women get at the helm of powers, they make differences. And that difference we must make in our time. So I want to say thank you to everybody who have contributed in one way or the other to this conversation. It's a conversation that cannot end. I can't wait to have Cynthia on my strategy team. I can't wait to have Juliet. I can't wait to have everybody I can see here. And for the men that joined this conversation, fantastic. I work a lot with men, and I really believe it, that you can't do it alone. Women can't do it alone. We push for it. We get their support. I do a lot of empowerment programs for women to bridge the gap, because the truth really is there's an economic gap between the men in our society and the women. So when you see me holding 100 women and I put them into business and set them up in their businesses, I'm not thinking just about my 2027 campaign. I'm thinking about the future, to make it easier for other women who will be running in 10, 15 years time, to have more women who are empowered in the society already. So when I do my plans are most times long-term, not just for myself, but for even children coming up and all that. So I look forward to the collaboration and synergy that will be coming from this platform. Thank you so much, Evans, for creating this. And Chineye, fantastic. Everybody's comments on point. Thank you so much. I'll be looking forward to more conversations like this. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Bisayo. Oh, sorry.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Honestly, just like you said, for us, this is part of why why Awipa is up. Awipa is basically a bridge for women who want to go into politics, not just in terms of information but funding and the education and so much more. And that's why when it comes to AWIPA, we do different things to empower even women in politics with disability, just so that there's a bridge for us in terms of, just as you said, to be able to just have that information and have people work together to make sure that it happens. And it's important to us because honestly, whether we like it or not, whatever we do today, we would live to see it, or even our children's children or generations to come will speak about it. And we'll be rest assured that we've laid a foundation that makes sense for our girl child and girls to be in that position that God rightly created them to be. We're wrapping up, but I see Juliet's hand. So if you can briefly just give us a word or two, because I see your hand up.
Thank you, Laomi, for this beautiful African women in politics. And I tell you, we need to really continue promoting people to register, because the first process is to get as many women to register, and men and the youth as well. And I'm glad you've also mentioned persons with disability, because that's something I wanted to also mention in efforts of promoting gender. So let's remember that without us registering in these, let's promote civics education. And because if we don't register, we can't add value to anybody. We become our own enemies. So we need to really register and push forward to transforming Africa, transforming Europe, transforming United Kingdom. Talk to women who are already in politics, support those African women already in politics, because it starts with you and me. Without being able to support a woman who is already in politics, how else are we going to even flourish? How else are we even going to be able to support each other? One of the things men do very well is they call each other. One of the things that women do very well is compete against each other. So I want to change and talk about changing our mindset. And as Bisayo thinks of her strategy, I strategized, and I told you one of the biggest challenges I had even amongst women was women telling me to go down. And that's really disempowering. Let's learn to invest in women. Let's learn to empower women. Let's learn to value each other. And that is why here tonight, I gave you the work of Laura, because I believe that once we understand the types of gaslighting and the types of hostility and that kind of bullying, I believe we can reduce and make a safe space for women in both empowering and creating greater economic empowerment for women, greater investment in women, and promoting the unity that is needed to promote the areas of development and leadership that United Nations has put forward. So thank you so much for this platform. And I have shared this, and send us the video. Help share these conversations. If you haven't shared this conversation, you're letting us down. Help share this conversation. Thank you again, Olawumi, and thank you for your program, and thanks for the invite here again.
Thank you so much. It's actually very important what she said, because no matter how much we speak and talk about it and really want the next woman to be there, if we do not register, we are joking. It's just like a pipe dream that can never come true. Even when you build castles in the air, you're supposed to work towards, ensuring that it comes, true. And that's very important. And that's part of why in fact, we had two projects. One was to speak the language of the creatives, where we had people do cultural dances in public places, in the media, just to speak to them about voting. And of course, crowds gathered because they're languages that people understand. Before they even know what's happening, they're getting the message. And then we were able to also collaborate with women in politics, professional women in politics, to go into villages within Abuja to pre-register loads of people. Even I was shocked at the level of people at that time who had not registered at all. They just, and funny enough, I think the majority of them didn't just understand English. And so when you tell them to go online to fill the form, they didn't understand. Chinaya was there, the Awipa team was there. We literally had to have them, some of them look at some of the cards they had to check their date of birth. We had to give some of them date of birth because they didn't know which month they were born. Do you understand? So those are gaps that are there. And there were lots of women who were housewives, who came with kids, who wouldn't be able to go far to the registration points to even pre-register. So there are lots of challenges, and just as she said, it's super important, and we must, as women, be that bridge. I just want to say thank you to everyone, and especially thank all the men that are here, especially the husband. We say, Mr. First Husband, sir. We don't know if that office will be there by then, but then we recognize you. There are some men that are that powerful to ensure that their spouse are not intimidated and want to have the first, the Madam President. As my husband would say, if you are the president, it's only one husband can marry the president. So it's amazing. So I pray that we have more men like that. So I want to say thank you to everyone who joined. We've seen your comments. Thank you so much. We're getting your email addresses so that we can send you information. Of course, we're going to upload this and send you the link so that you can share also. But thank you. Your presence is important to us. And to all the speakers, once again, thank you so much. Moderator, thank you very, very much. Have an amazing, amazing night. Hope to see you soon.